And right now, we are 2 minutes away from the end of the trading day. Romaine Bostick and Scarlet Fu here to take you through the closing bell. And that's our global simulcast. It begins right now with Massar and Tim Stenovec in our radio booth as we welcome our audiences across all of our Bloomberg platforms. And that includes, of course, our partnership with YouTube. Closing out the week here on a slightly different tone than where we started. Massar, though, some price distortions because of the options expiries happening today.
Also known as triple witching. I know you guys have been talking about it. We all have at Bloomberg. But yeah, that's a really good point. Having said that, in a week that was an interesting one, right? No trading on Wednesday because of the Juneteenth holiday. We had some records on the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ. But it's interesting to see kind of things settle down a little bit. But we are still looking for an up week on both the NASDAQ 100 and the S&P 500.
Interestingly enough, even though we're not seeing the S&P 500 move significantly today, volume is up 42% of its 20-day average, above that, as a result of that triple witching. So it's pretty incredible to see the increase in volume, despite the fact that we're not seeing big moves on an index level.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you do have a ton of money moving through SPY, the ETF that tracks the S&P 500, $25 billion worth. But you know what's double that? The amount of volume in NVIDIA, 52 and counting, almost a $53 billion worth of shares changing hands.
Yeah, and it gets to a big question, though, too. I mean, everyone's so focused here on the options expiry, what people are exiting, but I am kind of curious to see what people enter into. Is this sort of people will just re-up new contracts in the same old stocks like NVIDIA? Do they rotate into something else that isn't NVIDIA, isn't AI?
Right, what comes out after this, right? Where do they go? That's an important thing.
And that's going to really set the tone, I think, for the next few months of the year. Let's walk you through the numbers here on this Friday afternoon. Again, take some of this price action with a grain of salt because of the triple witching, but you are seeing some green on the screen, particularly for the Dow Jones Industrial Average and the Russell 2000. The Dow up about 14 to 15 points. That's only a fraction of a percent here on the day, but some people will take it. The S&P lower by about 8 points or 1/10%. The NASDAQ down by a similar amount on a percentage basis, 0.2% to be precise there. But the Russell 2000 holding in the green, up about 0.2%. S&P 400 mid-caps and Dow Transports also posting similar gains on the day, Carol.
All right, back to the S&P 500, Romaine, I go. And you've got about 295 names actually gaining ground.
Almost Can you name all 295?
If we had time. But would you guys really want me to do that right now? Probably not. All right, 204 to the downside and 4 unchanged. Scarlett, over to you.
All right, let's take a look at how the sectors fared on this fairly mixed day for the S&P 500 at least. Only one sector finishing up or down by more than 1%. That would be consumer discretionary, and that's largely on the strength of Etsy. Communication services gaining about 2/3 of 1%. Healthcare eking out a gain there. And on the flip side, NVIDIA, Broadcom, and Micron driving the tech sub-index lower by 0.75%. Energy and utilities also weaker.
Do people still use Etsy?
Some people do. I think it's good for birthday presents.
They are. Actually, you can find some really cool things. Jewelry.
Oh, yeah. By the way, my birthday is coming up in a few weeks.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I'll
put that on the list.
What should we get him? What should we get him?
Don't worry. I'll put a list on your desk.
Okay, thanks.
Knitted socks?
Yes, sure.
Okay, we're on it. All right, let's get to, I can't name all of the gainers in the S&P 500, but here are some that were moving to the upside. I have to say, it was really kind of tough to come up with names. Tim giving me a little bit of an assist here. SPR, Spirit Aerosystems. This went up about 6%. You guys know the news. Rallying after there were reports, Reuters reporting Boeing is nearing a deal to buy back the company after substantial progress in separate talks over the work its former subsidiary undertakes for rival Airbus. Basically, Airbus and Boeing are kind of, dividing it up, if you will, and the programs that they do for each of them. But so Spirit, definitely an outperformer in today's session. A company with almost kind of a similar ticker, Sarepta Therapeutics, up 30% in today's session. Company's gene therapy receiving expanded U.S. approval to include more children with a deadly muscle disease, expanding the market for a controversial treatment that still hasn't proved its benefit in clinical trials, but nonetheless, investors moving into this one in a big way. And then we have FactSet. FDS is the ticker. What?
I thought you were going to stick with the S's.
You thought I was going to do what?
Stick with the S's.
I know. I tried.
Looking for patterns here.
Alliteration a little bit. Yeah. FactSet, top of the S&P 500, $16 billion market cap, as I mentioned, up almost 4%. The company, it's a financial data and software company, boosting its adjusted earnings per share forecast for the full year. And Gilead Science, up for a second day in a row. It's up about 10% in the last 2 days. Remember the news yesterday that this company, experimental twice-yearly shot preventing 100% of HIV cases in women and adolescent girls in Africa. So this is a big trial, big news. They are still trying to get a vaccine for HIV. So nonetheless, investors liking this one for a second day in a row. All right,
Okay,
Tim,
you got the gainers, Carol. I got the decliners. I do want to start with NVIDIA, no longer the world's most valuable company after taking that crown earlier this week. Shares down another 3.2% today after falling yesterday 3.5%. Shed more than $220 billion in market cap just in the last 2 days. But come on, still up more than 150% so far this year. This is an over $3 trillion market cap company, and at the beginning of last year, it was under $400 billion in terms of market cap. Just an incredible rise over the last 16 months or so, 18 months. Palantir, also another stock on my radar today. The shares got pummeled in trading as Monness, Crespi, Hart and Company cut the recommendation on the company to sell from neutral. They cited the company's gluttonous valuation. Brian White says the downgrade comes after, quote, dismal earnings season for enterprise software and also failed to live up to the 18-month Gen AI propaganda cycle. Here's what he said, quote, the market will increasingly shun software stocks with excessive valuations. Palantir shares today falling by over 6%. In Micron Technology, ticker MU, shares fell today after Alethea Capital cut it to hold to take a breather following the stock's strong gains over recent months. Shares falling today by more than 3%. Analyst Warren Lau says in a note that Micron now trades above its historical 2.5x price-to-book ratio.
All right, let's take a look at the yield space. A bit of a reversal from what we had seen the previous couple of weeks here on a weekly basis. We are looking at a 10-year yield that is higher than where it started off the week. But as you can see here on a daily basis, we did see a modest drop here. You're basically looking at declines here of not even a full basis points here. So a modest drop in yields. But we should point out that really it's less about the price action today and really a lot about what we're seeing in the options market as well as the CFTC positioning in the future space. And that positioning still points to further downsides for yield. So remember, we could see a resumption here to the downside, particularly after we get to some of these quarter-end rebalancing.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So we'll be tracking that. The other thing we've been tracking, obviously, is kind of where the economy is. We're getting a lot of data. We keep hearing people talking about a softening, kind of getting a little squishy, maybe mixed numbers, if you will, when it comes to the labor market. Having said that, our Enda Curran, I think you guys were talking with him as well on television. He actually sat down and talked with the head of a big owner of convenience stores around the United States. He's been in this business for a couple of decades, and what he's seeing is that he's seeing some softness, and in particular, that customers are looking for value.
They were talking about Ari Kotler, the chief executive of Arco Corp. They have Admiral, Apple Market, Breadbox, Corner Mart, Handy Mart, Jets, Jiffy Stop, Express Stop, Easy Mart, and more. He says they operate in, quote, real America. Yeah, they have a good view on what people are buying. He says he's never seen promotions like they're seeing right now. He's running promotions on hot dogs and pizza. He's also saying that people are trading down from cigarettes to other tobacco products that are less expensive.
I'm wondering how many people are buying, whether the buying of lottery tickets has gone up or gone down in this kind of environment, because that's a consistent seller for all of these convenience stores. My son worked at 7-Eleven one summer, and he said that like 80% of the customers came in, they were regulars, and they were buying lottery tickets.
Interesting. Yeah, and it's interesting, too. We've heard this from some other places as well, particularly when it comes to the lower income spectrum, people even trading down from that level. So maybe that becomes a bit of an issue. Another story that we've been keeping an eye on, Scarlett, and I know you kind of flagged this earlier here. This involves American Express and Tock. Have you tried to get a dinner reservation in this town lately?
I don't go to places like Per Se and Jean Georges, but if I did, then I would use Tock.
Yeah, I don't believe that at all.
I don't. I like Shake Shack. Amex agreed to buy Tock for $400 million, and this is another service to tack on to its services that it offers its customers, including Resi. That makes it easier for you to, book your next 8-person reservation at Jean Georges, Romaine.
So does
as well as posh events like a farm-to-table dinner on Governor's Island.
Ooh, that sounds expensive and pretentious.
Sounds like she knows a lot about this.
I know,
Are you
for
sure
somebody
you're
who
not
only uses
using
Shake
it?
Shack, All right.
Just checking.
But I'm curious. So I mean, is this going to be a good thing now that a credit card company owns this? I mean, because I feel like this is just going to exacerbate the problem.
I mean, the whole idea with this is for American Express to be able to serve its members who are paying upwards of $600 a year for that platinum card, or even more for other cards that they offer, and offer them something that makes them feel like they're getting value from the service, whether or not they're actually getting value remains to be seen.
It's a big business for American Express, $100 billion in volume last year. So it makes sense to maybe add on another category. But it kind of feels like, this is their world, right? And it just kind of makes a little bit of sense. So I don't know.
Although they're really growing with the younger population. Apparently, Gen Z is really into Amex. I read that recently. So Gen Z and baby boomers. Gen X is not into
I love it.
Amex, is it?
Gen X, yeah, no. Gen X is the
We
best.
don't count anyway,
Let me
so
just
it doesn't
say,
matter.
give a shout out to Gen X. We're awesome.
I agree.
Yeah, okay.
Underrated.
We're awesome.
Underrated, thank you.
Truly,
Yes.
truly an underrated generation.
Forgotten.
All right, guys, that's a wrap. Have a great week and a safe weekend. We will see you again. Our cross-platform program, Closing Bell, radio, TV, YouTube, Bloomberg Originals. We will see you again, same time, same place on Monday.